Welcome back to Unsigned Berlin. Today I sat down with Eiliyas of Mixtape Menage and of Black Communion. Mixtape Menage is a podcast where Eiliyas talks to all kinds of experimental music makers in Berlin about the music that's important to them in their musical journey and in their life in general. And Black Communion is a series of events supporting black artists in Berlin. The next event is upcoming in June, and in the episode you will hear all about it.
And just be like the most you that you can be, and then just like go forward. Just like, no, this is why I have an ad blocker. Just for the sake of having a hot take, I will say, I understand why not to say that's dangerous, but I do think that there's a necessity for those things.
Did you listen to Kamasi Washington's new album? I haven't yet, but...
Not the whole thing yet, but I've definitely heard like bits and pieces. And so thinking about like what we were just talking about with the changes of people, like I'm actually very interested in like stopping and like listening to it, like to be honest, because I actually did like the first one, but somehow I realized I didn't listen to it like that much, but it was more so something that like I appreciated. Some of the ones that I've heard from this one, I can see myself listening to more. Like I think I've heard like maybe like 3 tracks off of it, but there's another part of it where something about the sonic cadence of one of them like kind of like threw me off a little bit, but overall I could see myself like listening to it a little bit more, because I know I was gonna probably listen to it in a different way, like the same way we were just talking about like Thundercats. But is he like no longer on Braden Feeder? Was it on somewhere else?
I'm not sure. Don't know.
Yeah, that's probably like the last thing I would actually know. But yeah, but like yeah, like speaking of which, like we actually like bought like an ad. Okay, it's like a very small ad. I probably shouldn't say it out loud. But like, it's like, yeah, you bought like a full page ad, like you like Dame Dash or something. It's like, no, I just got like the little the little half a quarter of a quarter.
The ones that pop up on websites that people just like click away from.
Just like, no, this is why I have an ad blocker. But it was for the print magazine. Right. So I was actually just happy to have it in print. And I kind of want to go and collect a whole bunch of like crack magazines now.
Dude, I have.
Is it the one?
Is it with the Kamasi one?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got it here.
So like with that, with the.
Do you want it to be on camera?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, do it. Because I was actually happy. I didn't plan for it to be that Kamasi was on the front of it, but I felt like it was also like fitting for like Black Communion to like be. Let's see, where are we?
It's a crazy coincidence.
Yeah, no, I'm super glad that y'all got it. So, ta-da!
Right.
There's a Black Communion ad.
That's big.
Yeah.
It's not so small.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You're too kind. Too kind. But at the same time, like, yeah, like I'm very happy about being able to do that. And I felt like it was something that was important. And yeah, something about like, which was also funny that like thinking of like what one might typically associate like Kamasi like with, and this openness of explorative black musics, and this and with a certain foundation in various parts of black music, but still like pushing all of that further. I feel like that's one of the things where it was like where there's a bit of like in syncness to having the Black Communion ad in there. Actually, if you look at the ad, it also like fits the color of the front cover too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you talk about Black Communion and what the idea of the project is?
Well, there's a lot of different bits and spaces of it. The thing is it developed from like a lot of different spaces and places. So there's like no like precise like one space. Right. It's kind of like the way I kind of function on things and doing things at the moment is a little bit like less linear and a bit more like non-linear. And so it ends up being like a bit more node oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like
around
a cloud
like,
of things almost.
Yeah, so it kind of like centers around like a series of like thoughts and ideas that kind of like combine into like and meld into like the larger idea,
Mm-hmm.
which was which ends up being Black Communion.
Mm-hmm.
So to be honest, like it's a how it came about was a combination of things between my experience of like performing with like different friends. I was a co-curator on the Soy and Synth from like for like last year, as well as I was working with another friend of mine, like Chi Machiri,
Mm-hmm.
where we were performing, but like his performance also had to do with engaging with like another person,
Right.
through like music,
Mm-hmm.
but also being like completely open to oh, that was a loud P.
Yeah.
But being completely open to different like styles, and
Mm-hmm.
both of us have like very like unorthodox methods of like composing and creating music.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that I tend to, that I've been performing, like I have other recordings and things I've done, but what I've been performing with live lately has been a lot more art oriented. It has to do with feedback manipulation,
Mm-hmm.
and his way of doing things is a bit more of a mixed music concretish,
Right.
but also a collage of things, and he performs with that, and it was like beautiful. So when like playing, it actually was like very nice, very beautiful. But when it came to the Soy and Synth, it was very much a thing of sort of conversations across like cultures.
Mm-hmm.
This was very much a idea and a thing within it as well. And yeah, so this idea of engaging with and learning about like another person through the creative practice was very like centered to it.
Mm-hmm.
But then like there's another part of it where, how should I say it? The idea of like myself and what that is and what that means, and like how that integrates and like engages with someone else or another, has been like a very much a theme that's been coming about like lately. And so yeah, so it's just been like coming up. So like also through like conversations with other people that that are on the team,
Mm-hmm.
especially with Rabia. Like the moment that I was like, okay, this is it, this is what we're gonna do, was actually sitting down like talking to him, and we were like bouncing like ideas around. But then also like talk other conversations with other people on the team, Nicola, Rafa, John Carlos, Rob, Chi, who I mentioned before as well. Yeah, and also thank you to everybody else on the team as well. Thank you so much, Kim. But like, who was also part of like Soy and Synth.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a combination of things. So when it comes to Black Communion, when we're talking about communing with who and the other, the differences are a bit more of, say, people of different parts of the Black or Afro diaspora. I know different people have different like words for it, but yeah, but just for me at the moment to like finish the conversation, just people in different parts of the Black diaspora,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing their differences, and wanting to create a space for those conversations,
Mm-hmm.
as well as knowing that I deal like a lot more with sort of like in the sound art, experimental, and explorative kinds of music and things. And so, yeah, so that conversation, so bookmark, like I said, it's going to be very non-linear, bookmark onto that.
Yeah.
So back to like the 2 evenings. So the thing is that I wanted it to be that on the first evening, like one plays what they normally play, and it's just kind of like as a way to say, okay, this is just who I am.
Yeah.
This is what I do. I'm still gonna be here to have like fun with it, but like, yo, see what I can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then the second evening is like, okay, this is where we like actually like come together. Like I saw what you can do, and I saw what you can do. Let's see what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, and I really like loved that, and like having that part of the conversation. Just to jump back to the other part.
Yep.
Of being within sound art, experimental, and these kinds of musics and arts. This is the central area that I like function musically. Like when I tour or when I go play somewhere or if I go give a talk or go to a conference, it's in something in that area.
Mm-hmm.
When trying like to find and investigate places to engage with, it definitely becomes a thing where I don't see that many black people or people of color being involved. And so that was always a thing. And sometimes like I can look at a program and be like, yo, that looks like amazing. But it ends up feeling like I've literally gotten to a point of looking through spaces and then felt like I was being pushed away from what this thing is that I do. And I've been doing this thing for more than 20 years, basically. And for different reasons, like I was in and out, like definitely having time, taking time out to like focus on like my son and like the transition of coming from the US and then coming here, trying to figure out like money things, yada 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 yee, and then jumping back in. But when looking through those things and not seeing it, then it just becomes like it was a very, I don't want to say powerful because I don't want to give it that kind of power. But it was definitely like a couple of moments where I was like, eh. Yeah. But then that kind of like automatically places you like in this position because there's this thing that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing and that I know that I'm supposed to be doing. Even if nobody else knows about it. Like if yes, like my folks, they'll probably be like, we don't know what the hell he doing. But at the same time, like I went to like this one conference and I gave a performance and a sort of like a presentation as performance and like another kind of like talk or whatever. And I remember like my mom was on the phone. She was like, you're the only black person there, ain't you? I was like, yeah. And in short, I'm saying all of this to say, and then like let's also like not be wrong. There's definitely like situations where there are a couple of other black people being involved and engaged with, but it feels like too few and too far in between. And so I wanted to create an event where that wasn't
the case.
Yeah, that just wasn't the case, and to like solve that issue and to solve like that problem. Another aspect, smaller aspect of the naming it Black Chameleon is that when I first moved here, like, don't tell anybody, but like I just realized it was 13 years ago. It was they used to have this thing, and they still do it now, but they used to call this thing like black music, and they would have like black music nights.
Right.
And the way that it was organized and the way that it was like projected, it actually felt just wrong. And it just didn't like feel right. And it felt like it was like being like lumped into this thing.
In a similar way to like the urban music category in a lot of awards show where you're like, I get they're trying, but in a not in the right way.
Yeah, exactly. And then also the other part about it too is that through like different times of like talking to people, I started to realize like how class oriented things are here.
Yeah.
And how putting it in like black was a way to try to place it in a particular class. And that's also not to say that some of those things that might be in the black and urban music category are wrong, or that there's something wrong with them. Quite the opposite. I actually like love those things. I mean, shit, like I was probably like listening to something like on the way here. Yeah. Because as much as I like do like all of this other things, like there's definitely times where like I just be sitting and listening to like Gucci Mane. Not when my son's there, but like it's just like there. Yeah. Okay, sometimes when he's there, but like not that often. I try to like not to. Yeah. But and I think that there's value in all of those things. And so I think to sort of like open that up a bit, like I always wanted to have an event like similar to this that actually started to like approach and like to just kind of like poke fun at that label, basically.
Nice.
So yeah. Yeah.
If you're watching or listening to this ad on Spotify right now, you may not know that you can actually access our episodes completely ad-free and a couple days early every week on Spotify. If you sign up to our subscription on Spotify for only €3 a month, you can not only get our episodes 2 days early and completely ad-free, but you can help support the podcast. This not only helps us continue the project, but it helps us grow the podcast and provide a better platform for independent artists, hopefully help their careers. It helps us continue more of the live sessions like you've recently seen with Sylvina or a little longer ago with Corp. And it helps us provide a better curatorial platform for you where you can hopefully find your new favorite artist and some of the artists that are a little bit more on the up and coming side that maybe you don't know about them, and we can find new music that hopefully you love. So if you go do that, that helps support the platform. Also provides you with ad-free episodes a couple days early. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy. Thank you. I would be interested to know more about your performances, because when we were just briefly, you mentioned before we were recording that you're working with lots of feedback.
Yeah,
it was associated with saxophone as well. And I thought it was also interesting that you, I don't remember the name, but the person who you were performing with, who you described the music as concrete. Which is it's like process oriented. But then you described your music as feedback heavy, which is defined by a process.
Yeah.
When you do a live set, what could I expect if I were to come see you perform?
Okay, I probably should say this too. When I very first started doing music, I was pretty much doing like just hip hop. Yeah. Like I used to be able to freestyle like all of that, basically. So this is before the 20-year mark. So this was like maybe when I was like 16 up until like 19. Right. But I got like bored. And I was always into like trying to like push things. And the things that I got into were kind of different people just showed it to me like at random. But that to say that when performing, so like I'm saying that to also say that, so like my initial like engagement musically on my own terms was through things like samplers and keyboards of this nature. Like I definitely grew up like playing like a little bit of piano. Don't ask me any chords or whatever, but I grew up playing piano, and I played like saxophone in band, alto. And I always also used to like love like Prince as well.
Right.
So that's just like a little extra like background.
Mm-hmm.
So like when it comes to the recordings, there's like a lot of them where it does like bring in like a number of different instruments like guitars, bass, saxophone, samplers, keyboards, yada 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 yee. But when I'm performing, so the feedback manipulation.
Yeah.
The initial idea actually came from. Oh, so yeah, this is why I tried to set it up like this. The thing was I used to be obsessed with this idea of like creating like a new form of music.
Mm-hmm.
But then I stopped like obsessing over it. It was just something that was like there. I think one of the things that sticks in my mind when I kind of think of like me not thinking about making a new kind of style of music anymore was this one line that was on this old Co-Flow album.
Mm-hmm.
You know Company Flow?
No.
You know LP?
Yeah.
Okay, so LP's like first group was like him, Big Just, Mr. Lynn.
Right.
He had this one line where he was like, I don't have to be different. I am. I don't have to try to be different. I am. And inevitably, my style will survive when your now turns to then. And I was like, that's so tight. That's so tight. But at the same time, if I'm just using that like as a marking point, it was kind of like just realizing that not to think about it and just simply to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just be like the most you that you can be, and then just like go forward.
Mm-hmm.
So in the middle of like creating like these different like beats and like instrumentals and things with the different instruments, I started to realize that the sort of like cadence of the entire piece would be changed based on what instruments I had involved. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And I started to think, yo, like if that's the case, what if I actually made my own instrument? Like what happened there? How would that come out?
Yeah.
This is before I became familiar with like Pure Data and Max MSP. I don't even know if it was available then because this shit was back like at least 22 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'd be surprised if
Max
MSP was available then. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea of like being able to like make your own instrument would involve like a lot more. And plus I was involved with different things. But in the middle of doing one recording, something happened. I think I started trying to like I think I was trying to like play the saxophone through a mic that had like delays and some more stuff on it. But then like I knocked it over and it fell in front of the speakers in the middle of like while everything was like recording. And so and then it made like this feedback sound and I was like, I don't care, I love feedback, let me see what happens. And I was like just like moving it like back and forth.
Meanwhile, the engineer's like, fuck, how are we going to do with this?
Yeah, pretty much. Except it was just like me and I had my own like home recording thing.
Yeah.
But in the middle of like moving it back and forth, I was like, oh shit, that's right. If I'm thinking about it, the actual pitch that comes from feedback is based off of the volume. So when that happened, also I love guitar pedals. When that happened, I was like, yo, so in theory, like I was like, what if I can make a direct loop of the signal going into itself, then I could, in theory, control like the feedback.
Control the pitch based on the volume of the input.
Of like yeah, exactly.
Right.
But then it became like, yo, extra step further. Yo, if I got a guitar pedal and if a distortion pedal essentially was supposed to just like peak the signal, if I put like a series of like distortion pedals together, then wouldn't I like in theory be able to control the pitch? And I tried it and it worked.
Right.
Yeah, basically. Cool. And but the thing is in order to get it to run in with having like a clean out, I ended up having to use a sampler.
Right.
And so
just to take a chunk out and then use it as a.
No, it actually just had more to do that the sound would just be consistently like being processed and going through it.
So you have to sample a part, like a moment, and then use that? Is that what you mean with?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
There was like actually no sampling of it. Sometimes I did like later, but it was actually more about like that the signal was still running through it.
Yeah.
So that way I could have like a clean out. You know what I mean?
No.
So like if I'm getting like feedback,
Yeah.
In order to make sure that it's not touching anything else in the room, then I need to be able to figure out a way to like have the out going into the in.
Oh, right.
Clean.
Right.
Yeah, and then like having like a headphone jack going into something else.
Yeah.
So that way that is super clean and I have like control over it. So that was like the start of it. But then like the sound of like just that pure feedback was interesting. I was like, well, there's like changes. Let me see like what keeps happening. So I started adding like more and more pedals and started adding extra effects, and I started to use that as a sort of like thing. And so it started to just kind of like move. Over time, I did not even like plan for it to happen like this at all, but it became like much more like percussive.
Right.
Like much more percussive.
That's interesting because it started with, I can figure out how to do pitch with this, and then it's like evolved into a relatively pitchless, like percussion's less pitch oriented than.
Yeah, but the thing was, it was kind of like, but it still does change because based on like which like pedals are active, there is still like the pitch, but it's like a sort of. The percussion kind of comes more so from like just simply me engaging with it and me cutting the different signals like on and off in different spaces. And so like there's like all of these different things that are like happening. So like say if I'm leaving these two on and leaving this one off, then that's one pitch. But if I'm cutting this one off and leaving this one off and this one's still on.
Trumpet vibes of the three, like that in different combinations give out different pitches.
No, exactly. So something is very much so something like this. So between that and like the choruses and the ring modulators, each, and it depends on like what the setup is for each time. It's still like very it's just like feedback and played. But in the other thing about it too is that when I was kind of like putting this together, I was obsessed with Thelonious Monk piano solos, and I was also listening to like a lot of like No Wave and like 31G kind of like bands. So like 31G was like this label, I think out of like San Diego, that did like a lot of like sort of like the hard like punk. It was actually like hella dope. Right. Have you ever heard this band, The Locust?
No. Sounds cool though.
No, they're like amazing. They used to have like the craziest like time signatures. Like we were just complaining about like Thundercat and like him cutting down the
song length. Yeah.
Like theirs, they would be like even like shorter, but like crazy amounts of like insane amount of changes. Like it'd be like it could be literally like 3 or 4 changes in like a 1 minute song. Yeah. But it was beautiful though. Like I loved it. But it was also they had like very like spazzy like vocals and like synths going along with it too. And so it was just like amazing. Like I also love like the Holy Molars, the Melt Bananas, and like the Lightning Bolts, like all of these bands or whatever too. And so, but like I also do come from like a sort of like jazz and hip hop like background. So it's something that's automatically like embedded in it. So I think one of the things that's most interesting to me and where I feel like I'm doing a great job is that, and when I really started feeling like great about it, was when people would come up and be like, on one hand, what the fuck? But on the other hand, you listen to like a lot of R&B and blues in there, don't you? And then they're like, and the thing that's crazy, they're like, it's crazy because you're doing like all of this and this is like so loud and all of this is happening. But I can pick up on that. And it creates a situation where I like appreciate it in a weird way. And like I've had people like kind of like tell me that, and that was
That's a good sign. It's a sign that you're treading the line of like, this is accessible and ties back to something that I'm like familiar with, but is also something I've never heard before. Which is really cool. That's like the goal of experimental music to some extent. At least for me, of like.
No, I think that should be the goal. Like regardless, whether or not that's the goal of experimental music in general, that's another thing. Because I think that I think it should be the goal of any sort of like creative practice. Actually, is to be able to like say something or react to something in regards to the human experience. Yeah. And I think one of my problems with a lot of the more like planned, certain kinds of like sort of experimental music is that I feel like it more so prides itself on this ivory tower positioning that tries to separate itself from the human condition. And I think this is where it really becomes like a problem. Yeah. And I think that I prefer to call it explorative versus experimental, because I think like experimentation should simply be a part of any creative process, because what we're doing when we're experimenting is that you're exploring other ways to explain something in the human condition. Think of it like this. What are some words that exist in English that don't exist in German, and vice versa, as well as what are some other words that exist in other cultures that don't exist in like English or German or the languages that we know. I mean, of course, we can't say how many of those are, right? But we know that they exist. So, not to quote Pulp Fiction, but like, but what was the shit that Sam was saying? He was like, "There's known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns."
It's been a long time since I've seen that. I don't remember that at all. But anyway, I get the idea. Yeah,
but they were like in the car and they were just like talking about like whatever.
Yeah, quarter pounder.
Yeah. And so the thing is that when you have that in mind, you always have to be like humble in living the human experience. And exploration is a way to find those extra words to be able, or that extra like language, that extra thing to help express this thing of like the human condition. Now, whether it's yours or whether it's your community or something else, that's a whole nother conversation. But it is about seeking that thing. And I think that one has to be humble enough to be able to accept it, like when that happens, and to go forward with that. I mean, because I do think this is the value of like art and creativity, and that goes for like pretty much any medium, basically. But I do think that there's a problem when there's a level of like detachment from the creative process. But anyway,
did you have any classical music education? Like in terms of, not in terms of the genre, but in the teaching technique?
Well, with learning piano, it was like, but that was like as a kid, like playing piano. So like not like a whole lot. There was another part where it was, like I used to play like saxophone in the school band for like a few years too.
Yeah, because I feel like the approach with a lot of that, which I really think is a big problem in the music education system is very detached from the humanity of music and being like, okay, we're going to learn scales, which are incredibly useful, and we're going to learn, like, in the UK we have a grade system of, like, you do grade 1 and then, like, that means you're X amount good, whatever. And for a lot of what parents want is like, oh, I want my kid to reach grade 8, which is the top one, and then you learn 3 songs, you do grade 1, you learn the next 3 songs, you do grade 2, and like, you don't learn to play music, you don't learn to express yourself with the instruments. And like, you can play, like, I can play like a Charlie Parker song on saxophone because I did that classical music thing, but it doesn't mean that I can actually express myself on saxophone, which is a
totally different
just a similar kind of thought pattern of the removing the humanity of it, which is, I think, I don't know, like, not dangerous, but it's a real missed opportunity in terms of creativity.
Just for the sake of having a hot take, I will say, I understand why not to say that's dangerous, but I do think that there's a necessity for those things, very much a necessity. Yeah. But if the other isn't there and then it's not imbalanced over the other, then it is dangerous. Okay,
we got it.
Hot take. But I think another part that also made me really loose about things too, but also gave me a little bit more confidence, also was like I only had like a bass teacher for like 1 semester in like college, and it was literally just one of those like throwaway things where it's like, you need to have like 1 more credit to like have like a full time. And I was like, well, I'm already like making like music.
Bass is like guitar, but easier, right?
Well, it was actually like more. Actually, it was more so like, well, maybe if I take this was what really happened. I figured out that if I took one of those classes, then the school was obligated to give me an instrument.
Oh, really cool.
So that's why I was like, that's what I'm doing. And I was like, and also like I was still like making like beats and like music, so I was like a bass. And then like, because initially in my mind I thought they were gonna give me like a standing bass, and I was like, that's gonna be like so tight. I'm gonna have a like standing bass in the house, like but then it ended up moving to just the practical one was, of course, like the electric bass. But to be honest, that particular teacher, I think also when he saw that I already had like a little bit of history, and somehow we just sat down and started shooting the shit, and somehow I ended up letting him hear like stuff that I did, and he was like, oh, you already doing your thing. You know what? We're not even gonna stress over this like that. You're gonna get an A. The only thing is I'm gonna want you to like learn like a couple of scales on the bass, and that's it. But then of course, like he was like showing me like this stuff where he was like, yeah, like everything's just like a simple like scale, and don't even like worry about it. So that actually like informed even like my guitar technique, because he was just kind of like, yeah, put the 4 here, and like example like blues scale, like that's really just the basis of like so many songs that if you just like doing that one, and it's just like not even nothing to worry about. And he was just like, do. It was like showing me like the Billie Jean, like, and how it was basically just like the bass scale, and then like going up and down like a half step or a whole step on certain things. And that really informed, to be honest, even the way that like I sort of like compose and create today. Like, so I don't think of like the exact notes. I think of the sounds and some of the notes in relation to like each other. And so like it's kind of like each one has like their own life, but if I want them to move in unison, then I might pay more attention to like, okay, what's this note's relationship to this note? And if I like that relationship, then I move according to like how many steps away from like each. So it's like maybe like a whole and a half step, and then back a whole step, and then down half a step, and so on and so forth. That's just like a very simple like the smaller version, but that's the direction that it is when I'm kind of like actually kind of composing or so, like in my mind.
Did you ever get into Tonnetz notation?
To what now?
Tonnetz notation, which I think that's what it's called.
Tonnetz.
It's like a grid of triangles that goes on for infinity, and at each corner there's notes that make it's a fifth going across, and then a minor third and a major third, and then they all kind of like map out to each other.
Okay.
And it's used to teach jazz sometimes, I think. And I don't know, I found it really interesting to kind of explore and try to do jazz improv stuff on piano using that, and it kind of changes the way you think of the chords a lot of the time. Like making it easier to be like, oh, I'll extend it a third, but then if I extend it like a major third and a minor third, then that's the same as a fifth, and it kind of, for me, tied together a lot of the theory concepts of these intervals and stuff, because I'm not so, I haven't practiced like reading score in a long time and that kind of thing, but do a lot of improvisation, and a lot of like how I produce is just improvising a production, and then it's like, oh, there's a song. So I don't know, that was a really interesting like rabbit hole to go down. I went down recently.
I love rabbit holes. Do it, dude. Always do rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, so I'm not familiar with that, but I've just say like the things I'm working with like lately have much more to do with either putting it together or graphic notation. And sort of where to place things and how is a large part. I don't want to talk a whole lot about it yet, because it's something that's actually like in the process of it at the moment. But yeah, I think graphic notation and anything that dictates like direction, because I think the other thing too is I think I was afraid of learning too much about those things, because I wanted to kind of have like a relationship to like each sound and each thing, even though those things are like very, very like useful. But I also like, I literally get like a high from like looking for and like sculpting like this sound, and then like figuring out like from this note to this note, like how does that make me feel?
Right.
Also, I should also probably say this, because a lot of times like I use sort of self-made like samples that might sound like some weird sort of like mangling or like percussion or like activity, and so like I have my own relationship with that, and I like love that. To me, I think the thing that's important for me in my works is having a relationship with the instrument and each piece of like each thing that's like kind of like made and like composed.
Like each part of the mechanism of the instrument, or within the song?
Within like the song. It's like, I guess sometimes the mechanism, sometimes the tool or the instrument, but a lot of times it's not even that. Like it's more important to have a relationship with the instrument.
Right.
You know, and so like I've definitely like played and done like a lot of guitar. But to be honest, the bulk of my guitar playing has always been like with detuned guitars. And so
is that like you trying different tunings, or when you say detuned, has it been like it's just like hasn't been played for a while, hasn't been tuned for a while, or is it different tunings you're trying? Or
somewhere along both.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, like typically like I used to play it like a little bit downtuned always, but then also there's other times where maybe wanting like how we were just talking about like the sound that comes from like the mandolin. Sometimes when I used to like love that, like the top 3 strings, I might like tune them a little bit like higher, but like tune it in such a way that it has like a similar like sonic effect.
Cool.
And just just turn it into like turn the fret of the guitar into like a sort of sonic boarding rather than like a typical like guitar.
Yeah.
But also when I do something like that, then it becomes much more important for, like I was saying, like the whole idea of like half step, whole step, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But how about yourself, man? Have you been like recording a lot lately?
Yeah, I just finished off did the masters on Tuesday for Latin Andean folk EP.
Okay.
That my girlfriend's the artist and vocalist.
Oh, cheers.
Thank you. And yeah, that's really cool. There's some cool experimental sax on it. That isn't me. It's so much better saxophonist called.
Better pick up that alto.
Yeah. Get competitive.
Yeah.
No, very, very talented saxophonist that he's currently studying a master's in composition at UDK.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some cool experimental sax in there, and did some double bass recording. I was experimenting a little bit with recording bass in stereo, which actually turned out really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of like using a mic which has a better frequency response at the high end to kind of get some high end that I could then put in stereo, but it would still cut through the mix, then still have the bass part in mono, which I really like how it turned out. And then I've been recording an indie rock album.
Okay.
With a Ukrainian band.
I told you.
Yeah, which that's been fun. It's just did the last recording day yesterday, actually.
Okay.
These live sessions we've been doing with the podcast have been really cool.
Okay.
Which is like a full video production and recorded and everything. Just did one that was like kind of jazz hop with an artist called Sorvina.
Called who?
Sorvina.
Okay.
Sorvina. From, I think she's from New York.
Okay.
I want to say. And her producer Jaco Hits Different, who's like he's a jazz drummer but produces as well.
Mm-hmm.
As in, he's a very professional producer, but he did education for jazz drumming.
Oh, cool.
So that was really cool. They had a super tight band. I felt really lucky to work with them. And Yannick, who's live editing in the other room, did the video for that.
Hey, Yannick.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's there. I don't know. Yeah, so those are the projects recently. I'm still making my own kind of experimental hip hop stuff that's really sample based. A lot of what I'm doing is similar sounds like similar to what you're doing in terms of like picking samples that just kind of sound a bit like noise, and then I feel like I'm trying to either pull a rhythm out of them and like accentuate different parts with other percussive parts, or trying to just like push them into a point just where they're like really have a groove that you can kind of like get into. Which I haven't even looked at releasing any of that. I would love to get some vocalists involved, but I need money, so I'm focusing on the paid projects, and then would love to be able to directly pay vocalists as well, instead of being like, hey, can you do this as a favor, and then you can get a split of streaming, which is nothing anyway. So yeah, lots of things, and then with this podcast, we've had a couple bigger guests. I'm trying to find a balance right now between having bigger guests on. We had an interview with Krungbin on Tuesday, which is like a funk band from Texas. Yeah. Which is like a massive artist.
They are definitely like in this world of like people that are like new bands that I actually like really liked. Really liked actually.
Yeah, and I did a bunch of research for that, and just listening to the guitarists talk about music is incredible as well. It's like there's certain people, especially not older people, but like I'm 22, Yannick's 22 I think as well, and like a lot of us are like excited by music but don't have like a wealth of knowledge behind it, because it just like comes with time. That I've been really fortunate to talk to lots of people. I mean, your music knowledge is crazy, and I love talking to you about it. And
I'm just here, but thank you.
That's what everyone says. It's like, oh, I just like music, and it's like, yeah, but it's fascinating talking to people like that. Having Mark Reeder on later on, who's
I'll tell him I said what's up.
Yeah, he's coming in like a hour.
Okay.
So if you want to stick around. Yeah, so I'm trying to find a balance of like getting bigger people on so we can attract a bigger audience, but then still providing support for independent artists. Which part of the idea is, like with Mark, he's obviously not independent, but runs a label.
Yeah.
So some of the balance there is like he can provide pretty interesting insights and a different perspective to music from a label perspective where he understands what's going on. And yeah, that's kind of been the current projects. And then finishing uni, which is like a little side project that we finished off a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah, all of that. And then building the studio, actually. We got the studio in February. And it was, as you can see from the other room, which is still a little bit under construction, just a room. So sharing it with a couple other people, building these diffuser panels, and these we had from a previous tenant of an old studio, so we didn't have to build that, fortunately.
Yeah.
Not into trying to deal with rock wool. But yeah, trying to put all of this together. And
no, but it's mad nice though.
Thank you.
It's mad nice.
Thank you. I'd love to be able to get a drum kit in there and provide drum tracking for people, because it's so expensive to get live drums on a track.
Yeah.
If you're like kind of at my level, at least, of production, where you're working with really small budgets, and then you're like, okay, I want live drums. Can't do it in my apartment because I'll be thrown out.
Yeah.
And can't afford to rent a studio for €300 for a day to get some live drum tracking done. So
yeah,
I'd really love to be able to do that. Yeah, it's a lot of different. I would love to have fewer bigger projects and less. Just like right now, I have lots of little projects, and I'd like to.
Yeah,
I'd love to work on like 2 albums for like a few months and then do the next ones. But it's
Yeah, I mean, but I think this is like also part of like getting into it too.
Yeah,
because like you were saying,
definitely.
like y'all are just starting, and yeah, this is just a big part of it.
Yeah,
Of, like
yeah,
just
for
like
sure.
the first thing of doing, like I think those two things for me definitely were when I was younger. I used to have like those things where I was like, yeah, I know where I'm gonna go now. And so while trying to figure out what sticks and what happens, and you end up doing like a lot. Even like now, to be honest, I think in the last, I feel like the last like 5 to 7 years has been like a bit of a reset for me, and a sort of like re-entering myself for like different reasons. And even like 3 years ago, it was a bit harder for me to say like what was going to happen and where I was going to go. But I definitely knew the direction everything needed to go. And it was going. But it still felt like a lot of like little things. And at this point, like larger things have started to kind of come about.
Congrats.
Oh, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
It's cool
thank
to
you.
see the work come back and
No, no, it is. It's beautiful. And it's like a lot of extra work and things that come up with it. But also there's like a lot of joy in knowing that like this is worth it, and the things that you've done before have actually like led to this.
Yeah.
And so you just embrace what's there. And so, yeah, so like at the moment, my main thing is like trying to figure out how to juggle everything and put everything like where it needs to be. Like I actually need to publish some more things from like Mixtape Menage, but I had like some issues with the previous like server,
Right.
Bluehost. But we had like issues, and they ended up like taking this site down.
Right.
And so I actually have the stuff off of there, but I need to like put it back up. But it just so happened that this was at a time where I was working somewhere else for a period of time, but then I was also like performing like a lot. So it's like a sort of like thing of like having like a day job, but then still having like other things coming. Like I think I was the day job, I was curating, but then I was also like playing somewhere else, like at least twice a month, which was good because it was definitely like extra money and things coming in. And then this particular thing came up, so it's just been like busy on busy, and I need to get it back up. But the thing is that one, I need to actually finish like some new artworks and things, and I need to get the Mixtape Menage back up, because the thing that actually did bring me to this space was Mixtape Menage.
Right.
Yeah. And so like I know that, and also with having Mixtape Menage, it gives me a little bit more control over my presence of things. And also like those things are also like good for being able to like just like tap people and talk to people that you want to talk to.
Yeah, that's been the coolest thing about doing this podcast, is just texting people that are interesting and being like, hey, can I talk to you for a bit?
Yes, and it also
and providing something in return.
Yeah, and it also like helps you like develop like skin, which is what you just need, like, and like do, because like in the like I know hearing like, I think I was talking to my son, and I was like, yeah, when I was like his age, I was actually maybe like scared to go and do stuff, and I was like, whoa, how am I gonna go to the big cities and do this and that? What if they say no? Like now I'm like, you fuck, they say no?
Then we're just back where we started, and that's fine. Like, at least we tried.
Yeah, I'll go and do this other thing. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't care. I wish him well. But like, I have way too many other things to give a shit about. Rather than like some other person says no. You know what I mean? And so I think it's good to like have that. So I think having a vision for like the future and the tenacity to like actually go for it are the two important things. And then being able to cultivate the resources to be able to like go forward. And so
Well, we've done over 45 minutes. Do we want to do a quick Mixtape Menage questions? Have you ever been asked them? Have you ever?
Not really. I think I'm gonna say like maybe a time or two, but not so often. But yeah, bring it. What?
So I hope I get these right.
Okay.
The first one is about music that brings back a specific memory for you.
Oh yeah. Okay, so
what would an example of that be for you?
So what's a song or an album that I have a particular like memory or epiphany associated with?
So much better formulated, but
no, it's okay. I've been doing this.
Your question.
There's honestly like so many. I mean, of course, that's what it is anyway. I'm trying to like think of like what's one that I haven't talked or said anything about, because there are some people have actually said it, and then like actually on the website, I actually wrote a couple of them just to kind of get the ball rolling.
Nice. Should do a playlist.
I actually should.
It'd be good for like just checking out what
everybody's like putting up.
Yeah, it's like cool recommendations and an easy way to get it.
Yeah, but no, I definitely want to. Like one of the projects that I really want to happen is to make a coffee table book out of it. Cool. I mean, because at this point it's been like a number of like people, and I really want to like just make like that publication. I think it'll be fun. Like just having like that and a couple of other like essays and like writings or whatnot. Okay. I think I'm about to like save that one. I'll tell you. I'll tell you like that one like off camera.
Okay. Okay.
I'll go with this one, and I think that it was actually with my mom, and I think I actually did like write this one out before, so I'm not sure if I did or not. I think I did though. Black Moon's Into the Stage. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I used to like love like that album. There was like definitely like different periods where it was like always being played. I think especially around like that early 90s time, where it's like Black Moon's Into the Stage or Souls of Mischief's like 93 Till Infinity.
Mm-hmm.
And a little bit like Far Side as well. But that first Far Side was amazing too, though. But either way, I used to love those at one period. That was kind of like in what felt like the second like generation for me.
Mm-hmm.
Of me being super into like hip hop. The first when it was like really my thing was actually like Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul.
Right.
Easily.
For when they were first releasing stuff, or like more native tongues, like maybe happening kind of era, or
yeah, like just like late 80s native tongue, like all of that. Like I used to like love.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so some years had passed and the Olympics were in Atlanta.
Right.
At this point in my life, I was always walking around with a book bag, and I always had a tape player and like headphones. I was always listening to something. And I remembered that, yeah, for the entire like Olympics thing, I actually didn't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom was like, "Yeah, you want to see the Olympics?"
Where did you live in Atlanta?
Actually, I grew up in Macon.
Mm-hmm.
So this was before. So this was like before I moved to Atlanta.
Right.
Like this is when I was like a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow my mama got like some tickets. Maybe it was like an uncle was helping run security, or it was something. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Either way, we had tickets and we went to go see like something, and it was not even necessarily anything we really wanted to do or to see, but it was just there.
Mm-hmm.
So I went, and I had on like my headphones, but like my mama was sitting there talking with like other aunties, and we like walking up and down the street or whatever. And my mama kept trying to get me to like take the headphones off, but I was just kind of like, I love these headphones, like, and I like rediscovered how much like I loved like this Black Moon album. It was like just like the cadence and like the production and everything was just like amazing to me. And my mom kept trying to get me to take it off a couple of times. And the last time, I think we were about to like leave. We had just seen like a high jump or something, and we were just there. And we were like standing like somewhere. I remember it was kind of like up some stairs and kind of like looking over like a sort of like foyer kind of area. And I had the headphones, and my mother was trying to get me to take them off again. But then this time she actually was just kind of like, just stop, just like enjoy like now and the moment, like listen to like all of the different things that are happening around you and the different like languages and the accents and whatnot. And this one was one of those things where it's like, okay, it made sense. So I took like the headphones off, and to be honest, it wasn't that big of a thing. Like I think she chose the wrong time to like actually say that. But at the same time, like I actually really appreciated like that sentiment that she gave me. And that was one of those things that she gave that I always appreciated and like and carry with me. And like honestly, after telling this story out loud right now, I'm also like realizing this is damn near the same way that I tell like my son to like get off the damn phone or the iPad. Put it away. Put it away.
Yeah.
Like just pay attention, boy.
Live in the moment.
Yeah. Except she said it much nicer than what I said. I'm just kind of like, boy, is this why you keep forgetting stuff in class? Anyway, but anyway. So yeah, so that's like the main one That's what I'm going to share for today.
Yeah. That's good. I'd love to ask the second one, but I think we're really tight on time and we got to do the file transfers before Mark comes. Yannick?
Okay.
That sounds good.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Sorry, I'm here. Didn't mean to ignore you guys earlier. I couldn't turn the mic on.
No.
Oh, it's all good. We know you're there.
You're here in spirit.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm watching over.
Yeah, cool. Do you want to promote anything before we cut off?
There's gonna be the next Black Communion. It's going to be on May 30th and 31st, and then the next Black Communion, which will probably be the last one for the year. We are going to try to make this a consistent series. Well, we are going to make this a consistent series. But for this year, the last one is June, I think 25th and 26th. Cool. Check out Black Communion Berlin on Instagram. Also check out Mixtape Menage on Instagram as well. And also later this year, there will be a release of the performance of the feedback manipulation. Please check us out on that, as well as please feel free to check out Mixtape Menage and Black Communion merch and souvenirs that will be coming out within the next month. So just tap in.
Cool.
Yeah.
On my side, June 3rd, Planta is out. This is the single I was talking about. That was the Andean folk, Latin jazz type of stuff with the saxophone. Full EP, Mujer Planta Echo, will be out July 1st. Otherwise, if you can leave a review, that's very, very helpful for us at the podcast. If you can share, of course, to people who might find this interesting, much appreciated. And thank you very much, Eiliyas, for coming.
No, thank you. Oh, actually, can I also say, check out the Mixtape Menage podcast, wherever you get your podcast as well.
It will be linked.
Yeah, and there will be more episodes coming over the summer. I promise. We're sitting on them.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, love y'all.